Alright, so this barn used to be a horse barn, and this middle section was obviously to have two different stalls. It has proven to be a pain in the butt working in here because you always have to constantly walk all the way over there, walk through the little opening to get to the other side, or walk outside, open up that little gate and walk in. And when it's all muddy and wet, it's better to not have to do that. So these three slats here, I'm gonna tear those down so we can just walk across.
Oh, no way. There's a skid steer here. Come on, you very dirty.
Back home. I'm gonna start just power washing this thing. So I pulled the belly pan on this. This is a Gale 4625SX Kubota diesel engine. Guess there's a little more coolant in there. The oil is just so thick. I don't have an air compressor with me. I did bring this one. But that looks nasty. I'm wondering if that's the original one. Ooh. Beautiful. It decided to snow. We'll let Mother Nature do her thing outside. Just gonna give it a few taps. There it went. It should just lift straight up and off. Like so. Beautiful. What I found out was kind of what I was hoping not to find. And so what happened, it was totally stuck to the off. Oh yeah, we're getting it, look. And I'll show you what a glow plug is and what it's designed for and the way it works. See how it's glowing? Hence the name glow plug. I'm gonna whip it over in 24 volts with the jumper pack on it and see if that makes any difference. I still don't think we're getting fuel down through the injectors. I think this machine was ran for a long time with no filter. There is a massive buildup of gunk in the air cleaner, in the intake, on the head going into the head. So either they're just completely, the rings are just gone and there's no compression. Don't look at situations like this as like, oh man, I'd hate to be in that situation. Because no, I look at it like it's a learning experience. All right, here we go. Already unscrewed this. This post is barely in the ground. It's already rotten. Oh yeah, look at that. All right, hammer time. Much nicer. Yeah, much nicer. 4 brand new glow plugs. So we're gonna throw those in. See what happens. See, this number 3 is the one that has no glow plug at all. It's completely broken. I mean, the only place I can think it's gonna be is probably chewed up inside that cylinder. So this number 2 cylinder, I guess it is probably not in great shape. And it's probably the large problem with this motor. I don't know, we'll see. Pop this last one in, and then we'll save those glow plugs that are still intact, just to keep as backups. All right, this is the bar that connects all 4 glow plugs together, allowing you to power each of them. All right, this wire right here connects to this very first glow plug, and that is what gives us our power across that circuit. So it gives us 12 volts to each one of the glow plugs when you turn that glow plug circuit on. So Get those tightened down. And now we got glow plugs again. Alright, here's our new shut-off solenoid. It mounts onto this bracket here. And then this end has to go over that. Alright, let me get that bolted up. Put the cotter pin in this little linkage there, and we'll see what happens. Maybe, just maybe, we needed the actual solenoid. I haven't put the new shut-off solenoid in because I didn't think it mattered. I still don't, but we're going to try it. Got 4 brand new injectors. I think that we might be having some issues with our injectors, so we're going to swap those in real quick and see if it makes any difference. Either way, I know this injector is definitely not good, and so my thought is we'll just get this done. Regardless of whether or not it needs it right now, I'm going to do it anyway. Alright, I'm going to use a little bit of air and kind of blow all this gunk around each of these injectors so none of it goes down the tube. There's injector 4. Alright, I've got new copper crush washers for each of these. Goes on the bottom. I'm leaving the injector cup or whatever it is, the thing on the bottom, mainly because I don't have any to replace it with. Now, because these injectors have not been in anything, it doesn't matter which one goes in which hole. And it may not matter otherwise, but so they've already been soaked in some diesel for a while. Whoop. Got to keep a magnet on a stick handy so you can reach down and grab stuff that you drop. Because unless you're perfect, you're going to drop stuff. I'm going to go blow air through each one of these tubes, make sure they're still clear, and then we'll pop the lines back on, we'll bleed the air out, and we'll see what happens. Alright, so we're going to perform a compression test on this engine, and you can't use just absolutely any compression tester. You have to get one built for a diesel, because multiple reasons. Number one is the pressure in a combustion engine, a gasoline engine, is much lower than in a diesel engine. A diesel engine, you can see anywhere from, you know, a couple hundred PSI all the way up to, you know, 800 PSI depending on the engine. So the compression testers you get for diesels, they go up to 1,000 PSI. And the other reason is a gasoline engine has spark plugs. So you pull the spark plug out, you screw in the compression tester in that hole, and then boom, you can test it. Diesels don't have those. So what diesels have is fuel injectors and glow plugs. And some don't have glow plugs. And so you either have to insert a fitting into an injector hole or a glow plug hole. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this little adapter here, and it will thread down into the glow plug hole, and then as we turn the engine over, we'll then have a better idea of what that cylinder's compression is. So for this engine, the specification is the compression should be anywhere from between 427 psi to 469 psi. The allowable limit basically is down to 341 is what they're asking for. So let's thread this in there and we will see what each of these cylinders is. We'll write down on this here, number 1 being the injector or the cylinder closest to the fan. Alright, got the valve cover off. I'll thread this in cylinder number 1. Here we go. Let's give this a shot. Oh boy. That cylinder's seeing like 25 PSI. That's not good. That is really, really bad. That is probably why we're not getting this thing to start. It ain't got no compression. That's kind of mind-blowing, actually. All right, cylinder 2. Wonderful, a solid 100. Well, that's really surprising. I really didn't think that one would be better than any of them. Again, way low. Way low. All right, cylinder 3. So that one's got maybe 250 PSI. So it's better than the other. All right, here's cylinder 4. That one has 100. 100. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're going to put some oil down each of the holes, and then we're going to compression test them again. And what that's going to tell us is if it's a valve issue, meaning the valves are not seating correctly, there's something in the head that's wrong, or it's going to tell us if the rings are not making contact with the wall, or something along the cylinder walls themselves are all scored up, rings are broken, something like that. So if we put oil in the cylinder and the compression increases, then what we know that we have an issue with the rings and the cylinder itself. If nothing changes, then more than likely it's a valve issue or a head issue. And so we're going to test that out now and see what happens. All right, got a little 2-cycle oil here. I'm going to try and make a mess. I was really hoping to avoid this, but I think that there's almost no chance of not having to pull the head right now. All right, that should do it. Okay, got some oil down in cylinder 1. Let's see what we get for compression. Okay, so that increased us from 25 PSI to 250 PSI. We've got cylinder wall and ring issues. Yeah, that's a big jump. That's 10 times the amount of PSI that it had before. 250. I don't know if that's encouraging or not. One thing, rings could be seized into the pistons, and this engine hasn't gotten hot enough to really break them loose and come out. Or 2, the cylinder walls or the rings are broken, or there's something majorly damaged in each cylinder or in the bad cylinders, which I don't really see a good cylinder here, but let's try that one more time. And that time it's only up to 150, maybe 140. One more time. Yep, just over 100. So the oil in the cylinders that we just put down it is now passed through and has gotten out. So yeah, let's do the other 3. We'll see where we're at after that. Maybe we'll put some concoction down the cylinders and let them sit, and maybe that will help the rings free up from the actual piston itself. I don't know. We're probably pulling the head though. All right, cylinder 2, got oil in it. We'll see what happens. It's going somewhere in the range of 200. I don't know why this gauge is leaking down though. We're gonna call that 200. All right, cylinder 3 with the oil. So that one's going up to like 500. Why is this thing not staying? What's going on with this gauge? It's supposed to be holding. And it's steadily decreasing. What's going on with this? This should be sealing. All right, well, I don't know what's going on with that gauge now, but I'm gonna call that one 400. That's the number we wanna see in all of them. All right, cylinder 4, last one with the oil in it. So we hit 300, and honestly, I don't think it's the gauge that's losing the pressure. Now that I think about it, I'm hearing it. It's somewhere on the head. Well, that loss of compression that quickly could definitely be an issue. Interesting. Well, we're gonna call that 300. So 25 to 250, huge jump. 100 to 200, 250 to 400, it did kind of go up to 500. That's probably the best cylinder. And 100 to 300, that's a pretty good jump too. So all of these, other than cylinder number 3, are less than what's supposed to be. I was already intending on rebuilding this engine. I just didn't want to do it now. So I think what we're gonna do, I don't have everything to rebuild it. I do have a head gasket. Let's pull the head, take a look at the cylinders, see what's going on in there. Maybe I adjust these valves real quick. All right, I've made the executive decision. I'm gonna pull the head. The exhaust manifold is cracked and needs replaced. We've got almost no compression, pretty sure it's rings or something. There is almost no way around it. Not to mention, there's oil in the coolant, which is probably a bad head gasket. I don't know, I'm tired of dancing around everything else. We've got fuel to the injectors. The injectors are new. The glow plugs are new. We just don't have good compression. So rather than trying to fix the valves or adjust the valves right now and figure out if that's going to help, let's just pull the head. I've got the head gasket to replace it with. We'll see what we can do. And that will hopefully also fix the oil that's in the coolant situation, because I think it's got a bad head gasket to begin with. So let's get it torn off and we'll go from there. We're not going to drain all of it out, but we'll get enough out of it to not make a mess when I take the coolant lines off. All right, here we go. 18 bolts, and this baby will be ready to come off. Well, we got one stubborn one. I'm gonna go grab a hand ratchet. There we go. Got it. Okay. All right, see if it'll come off. There she goes. Tippy tap tap. We're gonna make a mess. All Alright, here's what we're working with. Doesn't look ridiculously bad. I can't tell if that coolant was just left over from not draining an entire system, which I didn't, or it was in there. I don't know, these walls don't look ridiculously bad. There's a little bit of a ridge at the very top. Nothing you wouldn't expect on a machine this old, ran this hard. Yeah, there's a little bit of rusting in that one, I can see. Alright, I'm going to clean this up and we'll take a look at the head as well. We need to make sure to check that for cracks and leaks. So far, I'm cautiously optimistic. Alright, here is the block cleaned up, and you can see in the cylinder walls and the cylinders that number 4 looks pretty good, number 3 looks pretty good, number 1 looks pretty good, number 2. So here's what happened with number 2. You see that little indent there, almost like a T? That is the broken off piece of glow plug that broke off and got chewed up in the cylinder. And so you see there's all kinds of scoring on the top of the actual piston head. The walls are... This one definitely had some rust in it. And just overall, that's the worst of them all, which is surprising because this one had better compression than number 1. So, I don't know. I want to just throw a freaking head gasket on it and just go with it, but all of my brains say that's probably not the smartest idea. I don't know. I'm going to do a little more cleaning up on this, and then we'll come back and figure out what the plan is. I don't want to rebuild this entire thing right now. I do plan on doing that. I believe that these are sleeves, and so this liner here, this sleeve, can be punched out and replaced. And so I may get a kit, complete rebuild kit, that would allow me to replace all 4 sleeves, pistons, rings, bearings, everything. For right this minute, the goal is to get it started. So we're going to do a little work kind of cleaning up these maybe cylinder walls a little bit. I might grab a hone. We're going to clean the surface of the block. We'll go clean up the head, check and inspect it for cracks, make sure we don't need a new head. So the valves don't look great on number 2, but number 3 is not great. Number 4 is pretty good. Number 1's pretty good. Alright, well, you see that right there? You see this? From here to there. That's a crack. I think there's a big crack right here too. On number 3. Number 1 looks pretty good. Just looking at it now. Yeah, more than likely gonna need a new head. Wonderful. Alright, well, that's okay. It's a good thing I got this machine so cheap because it's needing a bit of work. But that's okay. I enjoy bringing these old beasts back to life. Alright, I cleaned up the head a little bit more. See that blatant crack right there? Pretty blatant crack right here. This cylinder looks okay, and this cylinder looks okay. So 1 and 4 are alright. 2 and 3 are not. Which is kind of funny because 3 is the best cylinder on the machine. Now, I'm betting these cracks are not really overly concerning to the compression test, but they're probably how coolant is getting into the oil and oil is getting into the coolant. So I definitely need a new head. I'm not sure if I'm going to even try and use any of the valves or the valve springs. I might just get new everything. I don't know. It depends on how much money I end up wanting to spend on this and what it's all going to cost. So we'll see. For now, I think we know why it's not getting compression, and that's causing it not to start, which with the diesel, that's about the last resort here. So pretty much the last thing it could be. Tried everything else. I've decided for today, I'm going to try and put this head back on. It's not going to be a long-term deal because at the end of the day, the goal here is to get this machine started so we know how well everything else works. Because if I go spending a ton of money on the engine and then I don't have good hydraulics or the pumps are out or there's something other major, then, you know, it's one of those situations where you got to decide whether or not it's worth putting more money into a machine that may not be worth doing, worth the effort, etc. So, I know the head is cracked. It's got a crack right here. It's got a crack right there. It's got a crack right here. It also has this flange for the exhaust manifold's broken. This one's broken. So the plan is to put it back on and give it a shot. I mean, if it doesn't work, so be it. We're not out anything. If it does for a while so we can get it running and try and start operating it, then great. We'll deal with replacing the head when we get to that point in the project. For now, we want to see if it runs. The other thing that I want to do is we're going to pop these valves out and we're going to do a little valve job. So you take, it's called valve grinding compound. Essentially, it's sandpaper paste. And well, I'll show you. We'll jump right into that. All right, so I want to do a quick valve job, which basically means we pull the valves out and we use some valve grinding compound and kind of grind the seat a little bit to make a better seal. And so I'm going to show you, this is a valve spring compressor. And the way it works is, it goes over the top like this. We're going to start with this number 2 cylinder here. You put that over the top of the spring, and the backside clamps down onto the valve itself. And then what that allows you to do is it pulls the spring down so you can take this top cap, which you can take off anyway, but you can get these little keepers out. Once these 2 little keepers are out, which are basically little wedges, you release the tool slowly, and that allows you to remove the spring and the little top cap. And now, if I push this down, that is our valve right there. So we're not going to get into too much depth in regards to how, we're not going to check these overly. We're just going to clean them up, put some valve grinding compound on them, and grind the seats. So you see here, the seat of a valve is basically this edge here, and it should be a lot more shiny. Okay, so now we've got all the valve springs removed. So each one of these valves will come down and I can just push it right through. So if we want to look at basically the valve seat, on the valve itself, this little shiny area that you see there is what contacts right here on the head. So that shiny area and this shiny area, so the shiny area on the head and the shiny area on the valve itself, they need to make an airtight seal. And if we look at like this one, it's looking a little bit rough. Same with the seat. The worst one is this one here. So what we're going to do, what you do is you take valve grinding compound, which is basically just paste with little grit in it, you put it, we'll start with this number 2 here. Put it a little bit on the valve here. Get a little bit on the seat. Normally I wouldn't do this on an engine like this, but we're this far deep in there and it won't take very long to do this. You use a tool like this that has a cup on it, and you basically just try and twist it. That one's no good. Let's see if this one is. Some of these might not be any good. They're not. So I'm going to put a drill on the back. Alright, so I'm going to take this drill here and chuck it up on this valve. And what I'm going to be doing is basically just pulling this close to the block. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to basically be pulling this tight against the seat while it spins. And I'm not going to spin it too fast. And we're going to go both directions. Alright, now we're going to pull it out. Alright, now we're going to wipe it off and look at it. I actually have a valve grinder, a Sioux valve grinder, and Sioux valve seat grinders, multiple of them. Really probably could use them on this, but so you see how now we have a much more uniform seat all the way around there. Same on the head here. And what that does is that's going to give us better compression. It's going to increase, because it's sealing better, it will then seal the air better, giving us more and better compression. At least that's the hope anyway. Alright, I got it all cleaned up. All of this valve seats are all ground to match the valves themselves. The whole bottom here is detailed for the new head gasket. I wasn't going to replace this on this engine, or on this head I mean, but I decided I already have the new exhaust manifold, and every one of these that's still a stud broke free, so I only then have to deal with 1, 2 broken ones, and I can put the new one on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, because I can always take the exhaust manifold off of the this head and put it on the new head once I get it. At least it'll allow me to put the muffler on and be able to listen to the engine and not worry about listening to the loud exhaust, because it's going to be loud. It's going to leak out of there and there. So I'm going to get this off all the way, and we'll go grab the new one. So there you can see that ear broke and that ear broke. Alright, so I got to pull that stud out and that stud out. And at least there's something to grab onto, so that should make it easier. I do have new gaskets for this. Alright, let's give that a try. Alright, got this broken stud. Okay, cool. That one's coming loose. Beautiful. Alright, there's one. This one's going to be more difficult. Heat this. Bingo. Here we go. Broken bolt. Alright, I do have these nicer exhaust manifold gaskets that I'm going to save. One of the kits that has the new head gasket had these cheaper ones. I'm going to throw these in there because, again, we don't care about this head. I do have to steal 2 studs out of this kit so that I can put them in and mount this exhaust. The last thing in the world we want to have happen is break one of the ears off the new manifold, exhaust manifold. Alright, 2 new studs installed. Alright, so here's our old exhaust manifold with the broken ears. Here's our new one. It's a genuine Kubota. Brand new exhaust manifold. No broken ears. So there are multiple styles for this engine, and this particular one, the way the Gale uses it, it needs this 4-bolt flange at the back of the manifold. So that's the one we got. So this will be garbage, as easy as. Boom shakalaka. So I'll finish getting that all bolted on, and then we're just about ready to put the valves back in and put the head back on. Alright, let's get these valves in. Alright, that thing is as good as it will ever be. Alright, to reinstall, it's basically the reverse procedure. So you take the compressor, you compress that spring back down, drop in these 2 keepers. There's a little groove on the valve. That second one in there. And you slowly release it. And boom, that one's done. Put the little top cap on. Now it's always a good idea to just do a visual check and look at the top of all of them so that you can make sure that those 2 keepers are properly aligned in the groove. Because sometimes you'll get one that doesn't want to seat quite straight and it'll get in there cockeyed, and you don't want that. So all of these look great. About ready to put it back on. All this work just to see if this machine will operate. Ah, the junk that I buy. Alright, I'm going to clean up this intake manifold. So the bigger thing I want to get cleaned, more than the outside, is the inside. See that? More than likely this machine was run without an air filter. And I kind of already know that because there's no air filter on it. And the air filter housing is completely full of this same black, nasty, oily sludge, dirt, junk. So that definitely contributed to the wear and tear on it. For now, we're going to get all this gunk cleaned out of this so that when we do run it, this stuff isn't melting off and going right down into the cylinders. The insulation has just kind of melted off over the years, and I'm going to replace it. I've got some heat shrink tubing here that we're going to redo it with. Alright, now we'll use the heat gun. Let's shrink them right on. Perfect. Now we got a better insulated power bar. Do a redneck hone job on it. So these are sleeves. So this round piece, the actual cylinder wall itself, is a sleeve that can be replaced. You basically punch it out, either probably flip the block and you punch it straight up this way. And they're a dry sleeve, meaning there's not water around it. So they can be replaced, and if I end up ruining this, the block will still be good because you can replace the sleeves. And the pistons themselves, we know that they've probably got issues. So again, the goal is to get this thing running well enough to test the hydraulics, to test the drivability, to test everything else. So, redneck hone job with some light oil, and we'll see what happens. Give it a go. Redneck, engage. Whoop, definitely redneck, don't do that. Starting to clean up a bit. It's really going to boil down to how good those rings are. But the broken glow plug that bounced around in there pretty much did a number on that cylinder wall. Cylinder head, everything, or a piston head, everything. Try that one more time maybe, and then we'll switch to the outside one. Alright, we're going to bump the starter over and try and bring these two pistons up, put these two pistons down. I broke my remote start. I crushed it in the cab here, putting the cab down the other day. Didn't break the switch, so I fixed it for now. I'll have to get a new one. There we go. One shot too, haha. This just shows you how... Oh, incoming light, watch out. So right there you can see how chewed up the top of that piston is. This is what it should look like. And this is what it looks like if a glow plug breaks off and ruins it. So I'm going to try and gently scrape this groove between the piston and the piston ring and try and get any leftover pieces of that broken glow plug out of there, and then use an air gun and blow it all out so that there's a chance that we get some compression there. So yeah, this is not a how-to. Everything I'm doing right now on this is wrong. But is it really if it works? Got our air gun. Oh. Well, I definitely did not mean to do that. We got coolant everywhere! Including on you. What'd you get wet for? Alright, let's try this front cylinder here. I guess this is the back one. Damn it. Broke my hone. Yeah, good thing I have another one with me. Pays to be prepared. Alright, might have found a bigger problem here. You see this? Where the hone hit all of the cylinder except for this little band. Right on the side that I can't show you very well, there's a lip. You can see on this one. You see that? You can hear my fingernail. Nothing catches right there. I believe we probably have crankshaft problems. Maybe the bearings are out. I think more than likely it's probably the crankshaft might be shot. Or the piston bearings themselves are bad. Based on what I've seen, everything's gonna be bad. So, I don't know, man. We're putting it back together and we're gonna try and run it, but I'm sure worse has run. I'm gonna hone this out a little bit more and we'll see. More than likely, when it comes to actually rebuilding things, this needs a complete tear down and rebuild. And I'm not sure if it's worth doing that or buying another motor. We'll see. We'll give it a shot. We'll keep going. Alright, there's 2 and 3. 3 was the best compression of them all, so it wasn't too bad. 2 was pretty low, and it's the one that got all chewed up. And number 1 was the worst, and I don't think 4 was great. But that's how the cylinders are going to look for now. I think they look pretty dang good. Alright, so one thing I'm going to do to combat the abrasives that I just put into the engine is we're going to flush this as soon as we get it started and running, and I'll run it for 5 minutes or so, then flush the oil completely, do it again. And as I'm doing this, I am doing my best to completely clean everything, all the ring around each of the piston heads. And granted, I'll never get it all out. I will never get all that abrasive out of there. I know that. And so when the time comes, if we decide to fully rebuild this motor or take it apart, we'll fully detail clean it then. Right now, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, this is a non-running machine that's not worth anything at all because it doesn't work. So, plan is to do this now as a temporary fix. Same with reusing the head that's cracked and needs to be replaced, because we want to see how functional this machine is. So, I'll show you 1 and 4, and then we'll start getting it ready to put back together. Here's our problem cylinder number 1, and there's a ridge right up maybe 1/2 inch below top, which the reason that's a bad thing is because as an engine comes up, especially a diesel, you need those rings to seal really well toward the top so that you get good compression, because diesels don't have spark plugs. They rely on the compression to fire the diesel, and basically create combustion. And so, if you don't have compression in a diesel engine, you pretty much aren't going to run. And so there's not a lot of ways to fix that, and that's what we're trying to do here. And same with number 4 here. It's got another ring right there. I think I'm going to go ahead and run the hone through 1 and 4 a few more times and see if I can't get some more of that ridge kind of knocked down. 2 and 3 are good, but I really do want to get all of them as best I can. And the reason you want to do the whole cylinder is because that is how you keep the oil out of your firing chamber, basically the combustion chamber. And you don't want oil in there because then obviously it starts burning oil and you use oil, and then the more it does that, it smokes, and then you know, a lot of times people don't take care of it, and then next thing you know, you're running on no oil, and then you ruin the engine. So, you know, this one's a shot in the dark here. You never know. I don't know if this is going to work or not. We will find out together. So I'm going to get to hone in 1 and 4. This is what happens when it comes out too quick. You break the stone on it. What I'm doing here is I am using WD-40 and air to blow out all of the junk that is sitting around the rings. And as I blow it, it comes out, I wipe it up, and then I move on. Trying to get as much of that abrasive material from the stone, the stone on the hone, out of the engine as we can to avoid it doing any damage to the rings. I've done this before. Alright, got a little 2-cycle oil, just what I had. I'm gonna crank this over a little bit, just make sure it looks good. Come on. So right here is the oil port, comes out of the oil pump up to the head. You can tell by the way it squirts oil everywhere. Alright, so here we go. Let's crank this over. I don't know. See, it's not wiping all of the oil off all the way up, which leads me to believe it's not seating properly. Alright, so here's our old head gasket, and it's like a composite graphite material with like pressed rings in it. This is called a multi-layer steel, or MLS gasket, hence the multi-layers. So there's typically a metal layer on the outside and then some sort of another one on the inside. And all you got to do to install one of these is essentially clean surfaces. You want the head to be clean and you want the block to be clean. And so we are all ready to pop this guy in here. So it's going to go in here. Just like that. All right, let's drop this head in. Okay. Go grab the bolt. All right, I got the head bolts. We're going to reuse them again. All right, I'm just gonna cinch these down. We will be torquing these properly. Okay, it's on there. It's good for tonight. I am done for today. I'm gonna go home and have dinner with my wife and kids and hang out with them. Tomorrow I'll be back to torque this head down, put all the other pieces back together, and then we'll do another compression test and find out where we're at. All right, got the head on, time to torque it. So you start with the inner bolts and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And the reason you do that is so that you tighten the head evenly and don't warp the head gasket. So 70 foot-pounds is what we need here. We're going to start with 40, go all the way around, and then go back and finish with 70. All right, now we'll turn it up to 70. All right, all torqued down. All right, next up we have the push rods and the rockers. Then we'll do glow plugs, injectors, intake manifold, get the cooling system set up, run the lines for the injectors, bleed everything off, and we'll see if we can get this baby fired. Yeah. All right, we'll get these push rods put in. And it doesn't always necessarily matter that you put a push rod in the exact same spot in all instances. And so you don't have to, but I do. I mark it out, I lay it out, I know exactly which one came from which. I know which injector came out of which. Because I believe on an older engine, parts that you're reusing, for instance this, the head, etc., they've worn into their spots and, you know, kind of fit into the spot that they are on that engine, and that makes a difference, in my opinion, so that if there is any kind of slight wear when you're trying to get old machinery going and you're not doing a complete rebuild, which doesn't always have to happen, you get a better chance that it's going to run the way it's designed to run. So, doesn't always work out that way, but that way I know that it's in the right spot. The rocker's in. Alright, so what I want to do next is I want to adjust the valves. And as you can see here, see that one's moving, that one's moving. There is some play in the valves, and so we want to get that taken care of. So, in order to adjust the valves, you have to set the engine to top dead center. I should have done it while I had the engine apart and I could see the cylinders and I could have known, but whatever, we'll do it the way that you do if you don't have the head off. On the side of the engine, the flywheel, or on the flywheel cover here, right down there, there's a little plate. And so I took that little plate cover off. So right there you see that hole. That hole is where that cover plate covers. That is on the side of the flywheel housing, and that gives us access so that we can see when we turn the engine over, we can see the timing mark that will show us when we are at top dead center. So, all right, so what I did is over here, I've got my little bore scope looking straight at that hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the engine over by hand until we see the timing mark show up here on the screen. All right, so we got the hole that we'll be able to see our 1TC mark. I'm going to bar this over by hand. All right, I got the camera down a little bit so that the light isn't directly at it. And you can see those marks right there. So that one is a 2. So So we need to go back. So that one right there is 1 TC. And we want it right in the middle of the hole. So we're going to say right there. Right there is top dead center. And now we can adjust the valve. On cylinder number 1, I adjusted the valve on the first, I guess this is the intake. I adjusted the intake valve, and the exhaust valve I have not yet. So the way you do this is you essentially adjust the cylinder 1. Once you have it top dead center, you basically adjust both valves, intake and exhaust, on cylinder 1, and then you come to cylinder 2 and you do just the intake, and then you come to cylinder 3 and you do just the exhaust, and then you turn the engine over 360 degrees, 1 full rotation, and that will put you at basically bottom dead center, which will bring, so right now cylinder 1 and 4 are totally flush with the top, and 2 and 3 are at their bottom. And so what we'll do is we'll take and we'll turn that we'll turn the engine over 360 degrees, which will put 2 and 3 at the very top. And then what we'll do is we'll adjust cylinder 4, both intake and exhaust, and then we'll do cylinder 3 intake and cylinder 2 exhaust. And that is the, I guess, proper way to do it. There's many other ways to adjust valves. You can do the exhaust open, intake closed method. Essentially, you watch the valves until, you know, this one on this cylinder is starting to close, and then you go to the other side. This is how I'm doing it on this engine for now. I adjusted the valve on this intake here, and there is just a little bit of play compared to this. This is exactly the same type of play that was over here. And what you want is 7 thou. You want to be able to insert the feeler gauge in there and just have a little bit of drag. And actually, I think we got it too tight. So in order to adjust it, you loosen this nut right here, and then this screw threads in or out depending on what you need. And so in is tighter and out is looser. So lots of play there, no play there. And so you want a little bit of play in the valve basically when it's cold. And the reason for that is because when you start up a cold engine, the clacking that you hear is essentially the valves warming up there, or they're cold, and there's a little bit of lash. And if you don't have that lash, then as the engine warms up and the metal expands, your valves will not close. And if they don't close, then you don't have compression, and you have all kinds of other problems. And so we're setting these, you want just a little bit of drag. Be able to pull that through. Just like that. Right about there. So I'm going to go with that. So then you keep this screwdriver perfectly still while you tighten this lock nut back down. Because we're talking very fine adjustment. So just a little bit of drag to pull that through. And you want there to be some room for it to expand when it gets warm. So this one, you can just see how bad that is. You just want these just tight enough that they're not going to back off on you. All right, now to just check it real quick, just take it and you just want just a little bit of drag. So we're setting these to 7 thou, 7 thousandths of an inch. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get all these adjusted, and I'll bring you back. All right, we're gonna pour a little bit of oil just over these rockers real quick. That way, when we start it up for the first time, it's got a little bit of fluid, a little bit of lubrication all over it. New valve cover gasket. We'll get this put back on. So we don't make too much of a mess. And then we're gonna test compression again. All right, let's just make sure that the engine turns over fine. I feel like I'm hearing a lot more compression now. All right, just a reminder, there's our compression numbers. Got the fitting down here on the first cylinder. All right, here we go, cylinder 1. Not much. That cylinder's still bad. We're not even getting 25 psi. I wondered about that one. So I put some oil in cylinder 1. Let's see if it increases the compression in that cylinder. So we're gonna say it brought it up to 150. So I'm betting those rings in cylinder 1 are gone. So we got our numbers the first time, and then this is the after REDNECK rebuild. So 25 and then 150. I'll bet we don't run on that cylinder at all. All right, we're on cylinder 2. Nothing in the cylinders. What the heck? All right, well, something's up because we should not be that much lower. We were at 1 to 200 psi on that, and now we're at like 0. One thing, maybe I adjusted the valves 360 degrees out of where they should be. Or 2, we just got really bad rings. All right, here's cylinder number 3. So that's at 100. And that thing had 250 to 400. All right, here's cylinder 4. Like nothing. The noise you're hearing is I don't have the glow plugs in cylinder 2 and 3. Let's put those in. That should not affect it. All right, let's try it again. Cylinder 4. Like nothing. All right, something's definitely adjusted wrong. I think I got the valves 360 degrees out, so I'm gonna check that. The factory valve clearance on this little Kubota diesel is 0.18 to 0.22 millimeters, or 0.0071 to 0.0086 inches. So on my little feeler gauge here, we used the 0.007, which is this first one, which is, what is that, 0.178 millimeters. It looks like it can go up to the 0.008 inches or 0.203 millimeters. And then the 0.009 should not fit. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a different method to set the valves. And I'm going to start, I want this one to fit in there. And I want this one not to fit in there. So it's going to be right between these two is where I'm going to set it. Because what I think is happening is it's too tight of a clearance on the valves, making it so that it doesn't fully close. It's pushing down too hard on that valve, not allowing it to come up far enough to seal on the head itself, allowing for compression. So we're going to pull the valve cover off and readjust these valves so that we get it to the point where we're getting compression, because there's no reason I should have lost compression that bad. If anything, it should have gained compression. All right, so this is the method I'm going to use to adjust the valves this time. So basically, you don't need to set it at top dead center or anything like that. You know your firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So what happens is when you get right above the valves and they start rocking, meaning going from the intake to the exhaust stroke, or whichever one it is, right at that point, that is when they're both closed. And so when they're at that point, on number 1 cylinder, you then set the valve opposite that, which would be 4. And when 3 is doing that, you do 2. When 4 is doing that, you do 1. When 2 is doing that, you do 3. And for this motor, the intake and the exhaust are the same clearance. It was way, way bigger than this the first time I adjusted it. We're talking like probably double or triple the adjustment. So I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference. We're going to give it a shot and see what happens. All right, number 2 is rocking, meaning it's shifting from one valve to the other. And I've got this little coat hanger, and I can tell that that valve is all the way at the top because it's only taking that much to hit that top of the piston itself. So that means that since 2 is rocking, we adjust 3. So those are there. Let's see if that one is wrong. So that one's definitely not right. This one feels pretty good, actually. Might need a little bit more adjustment. All right, now we're going to keep going. So far I've gotten 4 and 3 adjusted. We'll just get 1 and 2 done. All right, so this is a friend's little, it's a Minuteman power sweeper. Essentially, they are built to sweep warehouses or parking lots, and they've got a hopper here that can dump into a dumpster. This particular one has the exact V2203 diesel engine as the skid steer we're working on here. So I want to see if this compression tester is still good, because I did just get it and I bought it from Harbor Freight. It's their higher end version. So my thought is we've got this hooked up to this number 1 glow plug. I'm going to crank on the engine and we'll see if we've got any compression. And if we do and that gauge is fine, then we know that the skid steer's got problems. Well, we already knew that, but we know they got worse problems than when I started messing with it. So yeah, let's crank this baby over. Oh yeah, we got 350, maybe a little more. It's leaking down a little bit, so, well, that says to me the gauge is working just fine. And the little Kubota that couldn't in the Gale skid steer needs some major work. I'm gonna throw this one back together, put the parts back on. Nothing wrong with this engine. Well, I am not one to easily accept defeat, but I think we're gonna go ahead and call it on this one. I've done everything in my power to get this little Gale to start, and I think it boils down to the fact that the engine just has so little compression that it won't fire. Now, don't take that wrong, because I'm not done with this little machine. I will absolutely be working on finding another way to repower it. Either 1, completely rebuild the engine, which is a big project, but it's totally doable, or 2, find another engine to put in it. If you happen to have a Kubota V2203 that you would be willing to part with, definitely get a hold of me, because I'm largely kind of leaning toward putting another engine in it versus a complete overhaul. But we'll see. I don't really want to do anything other than the motor that was in it. So I'm only really looking for that Kubota V2203. I don't want to repower it with something else because I don't really want to deal with having to make it all work. If I find another V2203, I can drop it right in and not have any worries. Just maybe have to swap over some parts from this motor to the other one. I don't know. But again, like I said, it kind of sucks that we couldn't get it running, kind of evaluate the hydraulics, but that's how it goes sometimes. So I really was debating on not posting this video and waiting until I got it fully repowered. But in all honesty, my channel is unscripted. It is not fake. What you see actually happens. There's no set plan for every single thing. Now granted, things are planned out, but like this instance, I couldn't have known that that thing wasn't any good. But now I know it was rode hard, put away wet, and doesn't want to turn over, doesn't want to fire. Honing those cylinders out actually made it worse because I think there was so little ring left contacting the cylinder wall that it's just not making contact at all now. Now, if you got any ideas on how to make that thing work without pulling the whole thing out and re-sleeving it and putting new pistons in it, etc., which just snowballs, let me know. I'm all ears. But for today, this is where we're at. So I've got, come on. I've got Maverick and Scout. Here's Scout. Hi, pretty girl. Here, Maverick, come on. Hi, buddy. Come here. Good boy. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hi, Scout. So as you've already seen, this is the backhoe that we recently rescued over the summer. But these are two more of my recent rescues. This is a 1952 Chevrolet 1.5 ton pickup truck that I recently got. Oh shoot, I forgot, I can't open it that side. That I got. It is a dump truck, so it has a dump bed. I'll reach in here. Oh yeah. The interior's a bit rough. Needs a new seat. Needs a fuel tank. Needs at least this glass, that back glass, probably these vent windows. But the body is in amazing shape. There's almost no rot on it at all. It has the original 6-cylinder engine in it. It's been robbed for parts like headlights and trim bezels and pieces like that. Handles are gone, cab lights are all gone, steps are easily remade but gone. Basically, I'm pretty sure that has a high-low rear, and I don't know what the plan is for it yet. I would love to make some sort of a rat rod winch truck or a rat rod tow truck. I don't know. It's gonna need tires all the way around, even though all of them but one are holding air. It's definitely got some cool patina. And then sitting right next to it was this one. And this is a 1950, it might be 52, or I'm sorry, it might be 53, 54. I'm not totally sure what it is, but somebody put an old, I think it's sitting on an S10 frame with a newer S10 engine in it. I haven't even messed with it. Neither one of these have I done anything with other than buy them and plop them. So I did find some rims and tires that are holding air for this truck. I mainly bought this as a parts truck for that, but I think alone it could be pretty dang cool just to kind of finish up, make it run, get rid of some of the redneck engineering that was done. Needs a new seat, needs some glass as well, but I don't know. We'll see. If you've got any old parts for these early to mid 50s Chevy trucks, get a hold of me, because I'm looking for everything you see I'm missing. You know, cab lights on that one too, headlight trim bezel for that one, those top lights on the fenders, I'd like to put a set of those on that one truck over there. But I don't know, it's definitely got some cool look to it. And this one's not rotten, but this one is. This one, I mean, the cab corners are fully vented. There's holes all the way through the floor. The doors are pretty rotten. But for me, it doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be kind of cool. So, yeah, if you like these old 50s trucks, or you've got one that you enjoyed getting going again, or you still drive it, let me know. Definitely leave a comment down below. I'd love to know about your project, because I've always wanted to get into rat rods, and so these two trucks is where I think I'm going to start. We'll see. I don't fully know the plan. Definitely some cool old machines that I think I'd like to put back on the road. While I'm showing you some of my other collected projects, I'll show you a few more. This is a 1972 International CO 4070. Pretty sure it's a 4070A. It has a 855 naturally aspirated Cummins diesel in it, meaning no turbo. So it's a cab over. Love these things. It's a single rear axle, which isn't as exciting as it being a dual. The engine starts right up. I drove it here, and that's about as much as I've done with it. I did put this plate back on it. It wasn't on at the time. It needs a little bit of welding, possibly replacement. I'm probably going to look for a different one. I have two rear round aluminum tanks, one for here, one for the other side. At some point, somebody said they had a flatbed on this, and so that's why they had the square tank. But I don't know. Inside's been pretty well gutted. In regards to, like, you know, the ceiling, at least there's no stained mattress back there. So yeah, it's definitely a cool old truck. I don't know how well it runs. It's got 299,000 miles on it. So yeah, it's a 10 speed. I had to put the shift pad in there so I'd remember what it was, but and the reason I picked this up, and I didn't buy this, I traded an engine lathe and an air compressor for this truck with the hopes and dreams to find a lowboy trailer to tow behind it so I can move stuff like that backhoe or old red or any of my other big machines, which is definitely gonna happen. I just gotta find the right deal and the right price. These old cab overs are classic. They are from an era that is totally gone. So yeah, they've got their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, they are awesome, classic, sweet looking beasts that I am proud to own one. I don't know how good it is yet, but that doesn't really matter. Well, we can definitely figure out something to do with this on the channel and put it back to work. So you've seen this International scissor truck here on the channel, and obviously that's going to be an awesome truck, and I've already used it quite a bit. But recently a friend got a hold of me, and he said he knew of a guy who had another International truck that they were just going to scrap. He didn't have the time to deal with it, didn't have the time to mess with it, and scrap is high. And so I went there, took a look at it. It is honestly another International S1700. That one, I believe, is an 89, 88 or 89, and this one's an 86. It also has an International diesel. I think it's a 7.3 or a 6.9 International diesel engine. But this truck was extremely attractive to me for multiple reasons. Number one, I've been looking for a service truck, because when I go out and do these recoveries of all these old machines, it'd be so much nicer to have everything set up in toolboxes and not have to unload. I can just lock the boxes and basically get to work. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted this truck. The other big reason is right there. This is a polecat, meaning what it can do is you can literally use it as a man lift. It will boom out, and you can use it, get in the bucket and do work, because there's hydraulic controls up there. You can take the bucket off, and it's a crane. And so a crane on a service truck is extremely useful when working on heavy machinery. So right here, here's the crane charts and capacities. I mean, we're talking anywhere from 11,000 pounds to 1,200 pounds, this baby is capable of lifting a lot. The other big thing this baby has is a massive hydraulic powered winch. So right in here, you see that winch? So with that winch and me towing another big deck over trailer behind this truck, that is another awesome way for me to pull dead machinery up onto the deck of the trailer and haul it out of there. So yeah, exciting. I am so pumped to have these beasts. You know, this International runs beautifully. I'm not that great at shifting it yet, so I don't know how good the transmission is, but it is very similar to the scissor truck. So yeah, I know this video is about the skid steer, but figured I'd share a couple other of my future projects. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to drop a comment down below. Out of all these vehicles, the 2 Chevys there, the International cab over, the service truck with the crane, which one are you most interested in? Do you have any opinions? Let me know. I'd love to know which of these you'd like to see on the channel. Either way, I'm probably going to be setting up this truck soon because I'm already out recovering stuff, and having a service truck ready to rock and roll and be able to use right away is going to be awesome. But I want to know what you think. You guys are the reason the channel exists. So drop a comment below and let's figure out which one of these to start working on. All right, well, we did our best and it wasn't good enough, but at the end of the day, sometimes that's the case. So the lesson here is it doesn't always work out how you want it to. But I'm not a quitter, and you are not done seeing this little beast on the channel. So stay tuned. You guys have a great one. All right, let's go.